Welcome to Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. Our first Reddit post is from Feinstries and Decivencies. Wife tries to force husband's family to sell their grandfather's cabin to buy her out in divorce. The brother of a good friend of mine went through a divorce last year. The divorce was fairly messy. His soon-to-be ex-wife was trying to get as much as she could. My friend and his siblings all jointly inherited their grandfather's cabin a few months earlier. It is situated on a private island in Canada that has been owned by the family for 4 generations. The family was notified by her lawyer that she was requesting payment to buy her out of her 16th ownership. It's about 5,000 skt and easily worth over 3 mil. And their grandfather had several unexpected private offers over that value, all refused with no interest in selling. They tried to discuss a few alternatives, such as giving her a 16th right to usage, but no ownership. Their lawyer, a family friend, did a bunch of work to find a favorable solution for them. She declined, apparently intent on forcing them to sell it, knowing none of them could afford to front the money to their brother to keep the cabin in their ownership. In looking over the grandfather's will, he discovered that the divorcing brother did not in fact own any part of the island with the cabin on it. It seemed that their grandfather bought up a bunch of other islands nearby the cabin and willed them to his grandchildren separately. He only owned a small nearby island made up of rocks and gravel, not wanting to give her anything at all, not big enough to build on, and not worth any money at all. In the offer, they named the worthless island by its legal land title name. They made her an offer attempting to look like they were giving her more than she deserved, and with the appearance of being desperate to keep ownership of the cabin, to give her 75 usage rights of the island for 25 years with no ownership. She made a counter-offer which was identical. They agreed. Apparently her new boyfriend was more interested in the cabin than the money. They mailed her a set of keys for the cabin. They were keys for a master lock for their life jacket storage box on the dock at shore, as well as a fake key with a Brighty-Low floating foam keychain to give her the impression that there would be a boat available to get to the island. They allowed her to believe her deal was for the cabin's island for quite a while, as the divorce was still not finalized. Her first weekend with the island was a long weekend, and she invited her family out along with her new boyfriend. A 400 drive, and were greeted by my friend's dad and their lawyer. The whole thing was planned by their lawyer. He tells me that her family was stranded on the island for hours, as they hired a barge to ferry them over, and they waited until the barge left before going over the details of what she agreed to. He says she attempted legal action once more after that, accusing the family of fabricating the will after the fact. Apparently her lawyer dropped the case before it even started. Update: apparently I had a bunch of the facts wrong on this story. I was rather drunk when I heard this story originally. My friend says that the cabin was not an inheritance at all. The siblings purchased it jointly. Apparently their grandfather had the cabin as an asset that was owned by his business. The business was bought by another company before he passed away, and the siblings quickly bought the cabin back when they discovered that it was sold. Also, the cabin was apparently not owned by the family for generations. It was a group of islands next to the cabin's island that they owned for generations. It seems the grandfather bought several more islands and had the cabin built to bring clients and business partners out for fishing trips. However, while the cabin and the land it was built on were not inheritances, the other group of islands were an inheritance. My friend's brother was already separated from his wife when they acquired the cabin. The wife was misinformed by a family member that the cabin was an inheritance. This comment is from Thegoshetpuster. She lives on Island of Lies. This comment is from Creme de Marins. So basically your friend got screwed. He inherited a piece of rock which he gave away to his ex-wife. This comment is from Disgruntled Pug. Why don't you just go back to Whore Island? For everyone that yells Freebird. Our next Reddit post is from Arrow111. At concerts, you know who you are. one of you is at every goddamn show, and laugh like they said something clever. At least 200 times a year someone would yell Freebird. I used to tour with a band, and we had around 200 concerts a year. I don't understand why it's funny, and hearing it every day for thousands of shows. Yup, still not at all funny. Why do you yell Freebird? So one day we tried to find out the deal. Because it's funny, when the Freebirdie of the day yelled, we invited him on stage to answer a few questions. Why is that funny? Look of confusion and shame. So we didn't get any answers, but we certainly came up with one. Nobody comes up with ridiculous ideas like a group of 20-somethings who spend 15 hours a day in a van together. First thing we had to do was buy a sampler. They are pretty expensive. The one we bought for the prank was $1,200. Side note, we were staying all 5 members to a single hotel room every night and eating nothing but dollar menu garbage and ramen because even if your band is doing good, you're still broke. I just want you to understand how ridiculous it was for us to spend $1,000 on this. As far as I'm concerned, it was worth it 10 times over. The next thing we needed was a folding table with chairs for all of us, some teacups, and a newspaper or 2. We would set these up next to the stage and no one would even notice it was there. The trap was set. So we found a 16-minute long version of Freebird and loaded it onto the sampler. At the next show, sure enough, someone yelled Freebird. This time our lead singer acted really interested. What's that you say, Freebird? Do you want to hear Freebird? The audience cheers loudly. So just to be clear, you want us to stop playing our set and instead play Freebird. We all step to the center of the stage in a very serious-looking huddle. They cheer again in approval, and now the Freebird guy clearly looks like he's never been so proud of anything he's ever done in his life. We made it a point to go comically long discussing Freebird, and sometimes we would just talk about movies we liked for a while or make fun of each other's sisters. When we felt like it had gone on long enough, and we were terrible about making jokes go way too long, we all nodded and made it clear that we had just agreed to play Freebird. All right, folks. You've got it. You asked for it. Here we go, Freebird. While the crowd went absolutely nuts, the singer went to the sampler, and like an old man fumbling to use a remote, he found the button and pressed it as anticlimactically as possible. We sip on pretend tea and browse the newspaper quietly. Freebird begins to play, and we all put our instruments down and sit around the table. At first, everyone thought it was hilarious, but after a few minutes they started to revolt, chanting for us to come back and all. We would look at each other in a very confused manner and shrug it off a few times before the singer would finally go back to the mic. What's going on? You don't want to listen to this anymore. You want us to play our stuff again. Well, what about that guy who yelled Freebird? That guy sucks. And then the boing would start for that poor Freebird guy. We did this for an entire tour, and it absolutely never got old. I'd like to think that after that year, tens of thousands of people stopped yelling Freebird at every show they go to. At least for me, that makes the world a slightly better place. Update: a lot of people are confused about spending so much on a sampler when there aren't players and iPods. You wouldn't tell a sound crew to hook one of those up to $1 million system. They are the guys who can get some serious ProRevenge if you piss them off. This comment is from Red Bear Dragner. In the UK, it would be Play Wonderwall. This comment is from Canon M5. Ben Folds and Weezer co-headlined a show at UMD a few years ago for the university's Art Attack event. Easily the most entertaining concert I've ever experienced. Ben wrapped up his set by playing the piano through the use of smashing his stool onto the piano keys. This comment is from Zalmanin. Incredibly entertaining and hilarious for us in the audience, but I'd imagine the company he'd rented the piano from was immediately looking into their insurance policy as soon as he started doing that. And in Finland it would be play paranoid. Or sometimes, since in Finnish play and call are the same verb, call the taxi. That was Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. If you like this content, please subscribe and click the bell icon so you are notified of new uploads. We upload new videos every day. Also subscribe to our Patreon, as that will help us a lot. See you next time.